And any moment now, they're going to discover that I'm not that smart. Because I know a plethora of individuals that have shared that they do it, but constantly they're sitting there saying, any second now they're going to know I'm not really that smart. I know I experienced that myself. So what allowed you to then have the kind of confidence in yourself to say, look, I'm going to go out on my own and build what now can actually be considered as a media empire?
Well, two thoughts come to mind based on what you said. One major thought is that most people I know that are the best builders, most people I know that are the best revolutionaries, if you want to call it that, right? And I guess I would consider myself to be some sort of maybe an economic revolutionary. I'm a big believer in Black economics as a source of Black power. Most revolutionaries don't grow up wanting to go to war. They want peace, and they get called into battle. Like you're living this regular life. You think about a movie, like you're living this regular life, happy life. You kiss your wife goodbye and go to work, and then one day somebody bombs the house and kills your whole family, and so suddenly your whole trajectory, your whole path has been changed, and your whole mission has changed. Your whole purpose has shifted involuntarily, and that's what happens with a lot of Black folks, where you go along and you're playing the game and you're doing what you think you're supposed to do to be successful. And I did that. I was a very hardworking student. I was very dedicated to what I did. And then just things just happened that just kind of honestly pissed me off a little bit. It's just so unfair and just blatantly biased. And academia, unfortunately, as many wonderful people as I met in academia, there are also a bunch of arrogant pricks. I mean, just elitist, insane, ridiculous people that are they become racist, but not because they just hate you because you're Black. It's just because they just have this like weird elitism that where they're just like we hate everyone who's not in the elite class like us. And so by being Black, you're by default kind of in that category. But it doesn't matter if you're poor, if you don't have a PhD, whatever. Like we look down on pretty much everybody, including you, especially you people, right? Which makes me think about, like, for example, when Cornel West got into it with Lawrence Summers at Harvard. That was to me, that was elitism. It wasn't just like racism, because remember Summers went over and served with Obama, because Obama was elite like him. But it's like this sort of thing where it's like, you represent these dusty, dirty people that people like me don't associate with. So that's why your work is not important, right? So I didn't enjoy that very much, and it pissed me off, and it didn't work very well. And I told you, I always colored outside the lines. So you poking at me, we gonna fight, like, and like anybody, you if you push me too hard and I get to the point where I'm ready to fight you to the death, then yeah, you might still win. But at that point, I don't care if you win or lose. At this point, it's all about me just making sure that I fight in a way that is honorable. And that's very dangerous, right? When you're dealing with, because when I had my little battle with Syracuse, it was like I got into the point where I was pretty dangerous because I did have access to media and a big platform and all that. Even if they wanted to pretend like I didn't, they wanted to pretend like I was this little assistant professor who didn't matter. No, I was known all over the country. So if I decide I'm going to scream and holler at the top of my lungs and I don't care anymore if you blackball me, I don't care anymore if you let me go, then at that point, I'm probably still going to lose. I'm okay with losing, but you're going to lose a little bit too, right? So being called to battle was part of that process. Now, when you were talking about confidence, the imposter syndrome, kind of feeling like maybe you don't belong or you don't fit. Well, first of all, that's going to happen a lot with Black people, because if you spend your whole life as a Black man trying to pretend to be a white man, you're always going to know in an honest way that you're not really who you are pretending to be, right? Like if I'm LeBron James and I'm not playing like LeBron, I'm trying to play like Steph Curry, then he has a good reason to be insecure about that, because he's not Steph Curry. Steph Curry will always be better at being Steph Curry than LeBron James. So a lot of self-confidence starts with self-love, right? That means really looking at who you are in the mirror and really loving yourself, warts and all, and saying, you know what? I got some parts of me that make me into just a bad boy, right? But then I got some other areas that are not so great, but I'm going to work on that, right? But that's my business, not yours, right? So it's not your place to come and make me feel bad about my my vulnerabilities or my weak areas. No, I'm not gonna let that's not your job. It's my job. I got this, right? But either way, at the end of the day, I love me, and because I love me, I'm very confident in me, very proud of me, and I know that I'm kind of all I got. like this brain I have is the only brain I'm ever going to have. So sitting around wishing I was something different or better is just not beneficial when it comes time to really go to war and really go out there. You get on the football field, you're the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That's the team you got. You got to win a Super Bowl with the team you got, period. So what I would say is that I think in academia, what's really interesting is that because so many of us feel that imposter syndrome, people naturally take advantage of that insecurity. Like an insecure person that's easily triggered by their insecurity is easy to exploit and manipulate and intimidate, right? Like, look, if you keep on getting out of line, I'm gonna blow your cover. Or we know we know that you're only here because we're allowing you to be here because it's not like you're really good enough. Because we both agree that you're not good enough. So don't make me mad, or I'm gonna punish you, right? And also, I know that you're vulnerable, right? Like again, the way a pimp does a hoe, right? A pimp cannot pimp a woman or man, right? We don't make this gender specific, but a pimp can't pimp a person who has really strong self-confidence, right? Pimps don't aim for the woman who's highly educated, who feels good about herself, who has a great set of parents, who comes from a good family, right? Who's got that master's degree, right? He's not going to go after that. He's going to go after that vulnerable, scared, insecure woman who's struggling for money, an inch away from starving to death, right? And feed her a couple compliments and get her in line. And while he's, this and all the kindness is usually backed up with the pimp hand. Like you get out of line, I'm a pimp slap you, right? So Black people get pimped when we go into these spaces because we are psychologically vulnerable. We don't really have that confidence in terms of believing in who we are because again, we've been falsely led to believe that getting closer to white people makes us better, right? So it's like we put a premium on. We've allowed them to almost like print money in the sense that we've given them this sort of power to say that being in your space is more valuable than being in my space. Right? Me getting a chance to fit in where you come from means more to me than me fitting into where I come from. You're not trying to get into my neighborhood. I'm trying to get into yours. So at that point, you're in the vulnerable position of being an uninvited guest. You're playing every game on the every game you play is an away game. You never get to play in the home field, right? So, and if you know about anything about sports, if a team was forced to play every single game on the road, their winning percentage is going to be lower, right? Because nobody's cheering for you, right? Nobody's cheering for the Black man or Black woman who's really in that, surrounded by people who don't identify with them. And it's really, to some extent, I think it goes deeper than just race, though. I don't think, don't get me wrong, race certainly matters. We know this. But I think it's also a matter of saying, who are you and do you love that person and where do you really belong? And are you okay being there? So long story short, what drove me away from academia was, I got called to battle and I'm like, man, this sucks. Like I played the game right. I did what y'all told me to do. I'm supposed to live happily ever after. It didn't work that way. And then things just kind of escalated to the point where I was like, you know what? I don't need to be here anyway. Right. And I got a couple of things going. By the time I had a couple of things going on, first book I wrote, didn't do anything. Nobody wanted me to come speak. I would literally go give all these free speeches and spend money going to get a chance to go speak, right? Like I wasn't making any money doing any of this stuff. And then a little money starts trickling in and you're like, oh, okay, wait a minute. I made an extra $3,000 this month. That's cool, right? I don't have to, I have to wait for them to give me a raise. I can go make my own money. And also when you start getting to that point where the pressure starts getting heavy, and really a critical inflection point was when Bill O'Reilly decided to really go after me on the O'Reilly factor. I was sitting at home like 7:00 at night and my sister calls me and she said, Coco's my nickname. She said, Coco, they are talking about you like a dog on the O'Reilly factor. And what happened was he had said something about Michelle Obama. He'd made a joke about lynching Michelle Obama. And I was like, no, you don't do that. Like, you can't say that about a Black woman, right? So I think I'd gone on CNN or whatever and was like, this is crazy. This guy's a racist, blah, blah, blah. So he just decided, I guess, for some reason, to just stick it to me, right? Like, I'm going to get this guy fired. So the whole hour, imagine this. At that time, the O'Reilly Factor was the #1 show in America. So imagine for a whole hour, on the #1 show in America, they're talking about you. Like they're not inviting you in to defend yourself, right? They're talking about you, and they would have a segment and a guest, and they would say, "What do you think about this terrible Black man?" And they would talk crap about me, and then they go to the next segment and they play another clip of me and be like, "What do you think about this terrible Black?" And so it was the talk of the whole campus, right? And of course, it was going to be a big deal. So I get a call from the dean who's like, the chancellor wants to meet with you or something, right? Because they ambushed the chancellor. Fox News ambushed the chancellor on her way to work. So imagine, this is like I'm an assistant professor now. So this is my boss's 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 boss. Right? And she's getting all these calls from these donors who gave millions of dollars who are like, I'm not giving any more money to this school if you keep supporting that racist. You're harboring this racist, right? Again, they didn't really know anything about me. They just know what Bill O'Reilly said about me, right? Which is crazy. And here's what happened, right? So basically it was like I was in this position where it's like, okay, I'm being told to apologize, right? Like, okay, apologize, smooth it over, it'll make it go away. And I was like, but I don't want to apologize because I didn't say anything wrong. Like he made a joke about lynching a black woman. That's not appropriate. Like I'm not the crazy one here. And the difference maker for me was economic freedom. It was like, okay, if I lose this job, am I going to be able to pay my bills? Am I going to have a place to live? Am I going to be able to, afford the basics? And when I realized I could do that, that gave me the courage to kind of stand up with them. Because I noticed a lot of scholars think just holding something like tenure over their head, unfortunately causes them, the price you pay for that is so high. Like you're giving up all your freedom of speech and expression. Like you can't, you're here, you're brilliant. You got all these amazing things to say, these great observations that the world can benefit from. And you are scared to open your mouth because your boss has pretty much held this pimp hand over your head saying, we're going to slap the hell out of you if you get out of line at all. And so at that point, it was kind of at a point of no return. It was like, okay, do I sue them or not? Because I had a case. The chancellor knew I had a case, actually. She's a pretty liberal white lady. And I think she understood where I was coming from. But it was like, unfortunately, she's surrounded by this administration that just really wasn't trying to get any of that. And so we had some back and forth and all that. And so two things that I remember deciding was, one, I decided, you know what, you're not going to molest me in the dark, right? I'm going to literally plant, strap a bomb around my body and walk into the building. I'm going to blow my career up. I'm going to blow up my invitation. I already know, because think about this, right? I'm raising all this hell at Syracuse. What university in their right mind is going to hire me at that point? Nobody, right? And that's what had happened, right? I applied to a few positions and they're all excited because PhDs in finance were really rare. Black PhDs period in finance are rare. Black PhDs in finance are almost non-existent. They're like pink unicorns. Like the year I got my PhD in finance, I was the only African-American on the planet to get the PhD that year, like in finance. There was nobody else. I looked around, I searched, I asked everybody, no. So you would think, right, with this diversity talk, like, oh, well, we're looking for diverse faculty and we're really looking for qualified Black people. Right? That's BS, right? Because, I saw qualified Black people come in, do a great interview, and then they would just tell them no because there was no accountability. Nobody was forcing them to explain why they didn't hire that person. They just chose not to. So I learned quickly that was BS. But also, really, if you think about this, though, right, it really helped me understand what diversity means. Diversity doesn't really mean that we really want people that are different from us. We don't really want real diversity. We want you to just do what we do and be like us, just have a Black face so that you can validate our white supremacy, right? So you're black, you become like the Black police officer who hangs out with the white police officers. You go to the Irish pub after work like the rest of the white cops, but you beat up on Black people like the white guys do, right? So now we've got diversity, but that's not real diversity. Real diversity is hard to do because real diversity really involves the sharing of power, which I don't really know if that's something that people do naturally, right? So as much as I can be mad at Syracuse about what happened, I'm not really mad at them. I kind of get it, actually. It's like, okay, that's your school. You built that, right? You and the white boys got together and said, let's build a university. Now, 100 years later, it's this amazing institution. And that's your space. I don't know if I belong in that space. So I walked away. At the time, I had some animosity, but years later, I had no animosity at all. And I'll tell you why. Am I talking too much?
No, please. This is no.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because you got me going telling my stuff. So I'm doing the stream of consciousness in terms of how it all went down. So two decisions I made at that time was, one, you're not going to molest me in the dark. I'm going to talk loud about it because I need you to know how racist you are, and I'm going to do my part to make sure that light is shined on that. Knowing full well that I'm not going to be the beneficiary of any progress that's made. I already know, like literally, I had this really great department chair, a white guy, wonderful guy. I'm not gonna say his name because I he's still there. I won't blow up his spot, but he said he literally explained to me when we went up for tenure, there were three of us, three black people that went up for tenure on campus that year, and he said between us, the truth is that those other two people would never have gotten tenure if it wasn't for the fact that they really needed to reject you. So those two got tenure, I didn't, right? And he said the reason they got tenure is because they needed racial cover to get rid of you. He said that because if you had not been there, if then they wouldn't have gotten tenure. We rejected them out hand. Their visas were not qualified for them to get tenure. So, in a way, it's like football, right? The lineman clears the path, blocks for the running back who runs into the end zone, right? But, so that's kind of how it went down. But the thing was, I decided you weren't going to molest me in the dark. And I'm glad I did that because the following year, they hired a ton of black people. Just to prove that they weren't racist. Because every interview I did, I was like, look at their hiring record. Look at how many departments they have where they've never hired a black person, never tenured a black person, right? Just go look at the record. Like, it's just because what happened was the conversation got into this weird, like it always does. Well, they're saying that you're not qualified and that's why they didn't give you tenure. So is that true? So I said, no, I learned this actually from playing. I'm a really good poker player, believe it or not. Poker is a great game of strategy, psychology, and math. And I've won tournaments with hundreds of people in, right? So poker was a really fascinating thing to me. And one thing I learned about poker is this: when you really want to win, you don't let yourself get on the defensive. You play offense. You don't get yourself in a position. See, black folks make this mistake. You put yourself in a position where you're always reacting to oh no, I can't believe they did what they did, right? No, in poker, if you want to win, you actually go on the offensive so that they're reacting to you. So you have the first mover advantage. Like, okay, what am I going to do now? What am I going to do now? And they're kind of freaking out about that, right? So the thing was that in this whole situation, I decided, I'm going to just go hard, go on the attack. And so when you come to me and you say, well, we're from the such and such a journal, and they're saying that you're not qualified, and we just want to clear the air. And what do you think, Dr. Watkins? A lot of people would have spent a lot of time defending their qualifications, and I didn't do that. I said, let's assume I'm not qualified. I'm gonna go ahead and punt that ball. Let's assume that I am terrible. I don't deserve it. I am garbage, and I should be fired. I said, now here's what I want you to do. Now I want you to go look at their hiring record. Look at the data, and you tell me, with a hiring record and a promotion record like that, can that be defined as anything other than complete racism? When you haven't promoted a black person in a department in 100 years, you can't tell me that there's something wrong with me. No, there's something wrong with you. You are incapable and unwilling to evaluate qualified black people. That's what's wrong with you. And nobody's calling you on your BS because black folks, we spend so much time being defensive. Like, I got to be perfect to prove that, no, I never made a mistake. No, white guys don't have to do that. White guys make mistakes all the time and still get opportunities. But somehow they got you walking on pins and needles, worried that the little thing you did wrong, again, it plays into your imposter syndrome, right? So you feel like you got to be perfect in order to get opportunities that are provided to mediocre people all the time, right? So I wasn't going to let them molest me in the dark. Second decision I made was I said, I'm not going to sue them because I don't want to spend 40 years in court. I read a story. The thing that made my decision for that was actually the professor, who happened to be at the University of Kentucky where I went to undergrad. He was an English professor who earned tenure in 1976, and he didn't get it, and he took him to court, and he won the lawsuit. And it was 35 years later, right before he died. Like, literally, he won the lawsuit like 2 years before he died. I said, no, I'm not going out like that. And so I just took off, man. And it was hard. It was difficult. But I figured out something, right? To me, this was important for me. I said, okay, what is tenure anyway? Why is everybody selling their soul for tenure? Like, like I'm gonna sell some WAP to get tenure. Like, people are just like giving up anything. I'll give my firstborn child for tenure. So I was like, what is tenure anyway? Oh, okay. So tenure is pretty much job security. That's it. It's financial security. I mean, sure, there's some status that comes with that, but I think you can actually validate yourself. I think that validation, I get validation from my community. There's financial security. So I said, okay. So financial security, you can get that in a lot of ways, right? So I said, okay, so I can get financial security provided by my oppressor, by the way, by getting this job for life. Or I could figure out how to go out here and make some money. If I go out and I figure out how to make $1 million, that would make me pretty secure. And then I could do whatever the hell I want, and I don't have to answer to anybody. So I said, which is harder? figuring out how to get into these elitist academic journals, which I had no mentor. Like, that was the thing. They literally low dropped us in the middle of this department with no support, no mentorship. There was no senior faculty member I could go talk to. And if you learn about academia, like Alicia, my fiance, she's a full professor of social work. A lot of her progress was driven by having a black woman, one black woman in particular, who bulldozed through her tough situations, her tough spots, right? She'd be in the committee meetings and would say, no, you're not going to do that to her, right? That advocacy is really, having somebody block for you is really important. I was Patrick Mahomes of the Super Bowl, with no offensive linemen, right? So you saw what happened to Patrick Mahomes when he didn't have a blocker, right? So anyway, sorry, I'm just laughing, just thinking about it, right? So what I decided to do, man, was I said, okay, I'm gonna go out here. I'm just gonna figure out how to go make some money. And I said, there are thousands and thousands of white people who make lots of money all the time. I could figure it out. So I just started studying entrepreneurship. I would listen to podcasts on entrepreneurship every day. I was taking classes on entrepreneurship, talking to people I knew who knew how to make money. And what happened was my confidence grew. Like, okay, first you make your first 2,000 or 3,000. You're like, okay, I can make enough money on my own to survive. And then it goes to 10, then 20. And then you're like, yo, wait a minute. I'm making more than I made in academia. And so you just go down the rabbit hole. So years later, I swear to God, when I tell you, I swear, I put it on everything, that I am not angry at Syracuse at all. In fact, I want to send them a thank you card, because if I had not been called to battle, I never would have found my purpose. So I have no animosity toward them, but I do, but I do have a heart for those scholars that are still in that system, because we know it's a corrupt system. It's a bunch of BS. And so the thing is that it's really on Black people to say, how do you build a better system? How do you build something that's better for you?
Thank you. No, that's very insightful. I mean, because people look at where someone is today, and they have no real concept or understanding of what it really took for you to